One of the things I really like about George Harrison's songwriting is how direct he can be. I usually don't have to work too hard to figure out what George is thinking or feeling. Like with the song, I Want to Tell You. I love that song. I love its vibe. I love its feel. I love the fact that there's so much going on, with that song. And I love George's vocals. But I never really looked too deep into the lyrics, too deep into the story that George was telling me. I always thought that this was, him and Patty, they're just having a fight or something like that. And George was telling us all about it, like typical boy-girl stuff in a cool song. It wasn't until recently that I said, okay, there's something else going on here. So I looked a little bit deeper because, there's a lot of mixed emotions here when you listen to the song because it is like highs and lows and there's tension and even George's vocals. Like there's some sadness and there's some sullenness and there's some snarkiness and there's some vulnerability there. So it's like, okay, there's a lot going on here and it's all very subtle and you can more feel it rather than actually like, oh, here it is. So George really was trying to tell us something. So I do think that this is an important song, for George, and that I just that I didn't get at the time. And I think it's important because George goes back in his autobiography, I Mean Mine, and he says, hey, I want to rewrite, one of the bridges here. I want to revisit it. And George does say in the autobiography that this song is about like that avalanche of thoughts that are like in your head and you just can't figure it out. And yeah, you can tell here that there's a lot going on here because he does tell you. He tells you all about it right from the start. Like, I want to tell you. My head is filled with things to say. But when you're here, all those words, they seem to slip away. It's kind of sad. It's kind of sad, isn't it? It's like, I got a problem here, but I really just don't know what to do about it. I feel like I have something to offer here, but I'm not quite sure how to put it into words, and I'm not even sure if I'll be heard or understood. And I think that what's going on here with George at this time, and maybe he didn't really know about it at the time, like George is at a time in his life when he's like betwixt and between. Like he's, in his career too. Like he's no longer like this happy-go-lucky, Beatle guitar player like the Quiet Beatle, but he's not quite yet that spiritual, confident George. He's this guy here who's kind of waking up to the fact that, okay, all right, I'm married now. That's a cool thing, but I got to pay taxes now. That's not so cool. And I used to like touring, etc. Now I don't like touring. All of that's a pain when I'd much rather just be doing all these other fun things. And the world is opening up to me. And I like meditation and spirituality, Indian music, I'm expanding my mind here, and I like getting stoned. All these other things. So George is growing up basically, and his awareness is expanding. Maybe because he got married. Who knows? Maybe he's thinking about this future more. Maybe he's taking things more seriously, which is what happens. Like when you grow up, it's like, okay, life kind of hits you, man. It really does. And you get these responsibilities and it kind of brings you down a little bit, brings you down to earth, doesn't it? Harsh as your buzz, doesn't it, George? But again, I think that he's telling us about it here as the best way that he can because he's like right in the middle of it. So George is kind of like betwixt in between, even in the lyrics here. Yeah, George has a lot of great things happening for him at the time because with any time you grow and you expand your awareness, you change inside and you have greater understanding. And this is what George is writing about. And he becomes more prolific as a songwriter because he has those thoughts and these feelings and he's motivated now to have something substantive. I mean, he's got Taxman, Love You Too. And he has also got Isn't It a Pity at the same time. So George is, so you can kind of tell the mood that George is in here in the first part of 1966. So this is not Isn't It a Pity. This is George like a bit closer to home. Okay, this is still like him, I think mainly talking about himself and the, and that middle zone that he finds himself in, this never-lever land, this limbo land that he's not happy with. He's not happy with himself. He's saying, I used to like this. I don't like this now. Like, who the heck am I, man? Because everything I do, it's a mess. Okay, and I don't like playing games. And in the second verse, he tells us all about that. When I get near you, the games begin to drag me down. That's all right. I'll make you next time around. So what games are you talking about, George? It could be any kind of games at this time. I mean, it could be even George's own mind games, all those thoughts in his head where he's saying like, you can do this, you're great and everything. And the other side of his head is kind of telling him, no, you suck. Or maybe he's got games at work, with the Beatles, et cetera, and business, and he's not digging any of that stuff, things you got to do. A 23-year-old doesn't want to do a lot of stuff. Or maybe he's just playing games with Patty, husband and wife stuff, and it's not working out for him. Maybe he's trying to have things his way. Maybe he's taking out his stuff on her. That's what happens. Sometimes, unfortunately, we take out our problems on our loved ones, and that's possibly what's happening here. It's like we hurt each other. Okay, even when we don't want to, and I'm sure that George doesn't want to hurt Patty, but it's like, here it is, man. Here's my crap. Like, deal with it. And Patty's saying, like, get your crap out of here, man. So George, and you do have like that in here. It's like Patty saying, it's all right. I'll make you next time around. And that's the other cool thing here about this song, like with the verses, and even with the bridges. There's a lot of like two sides of the coin here. This song is kind of trying to balance itself out. It's kind of in that middle limbo land where George is neither this nor that, like with the verse, when I get near you, the games begin to drag me down. So you've got like, here's the problem, man. I'm kind of grumpy, etc. Games begin to drag me down. And then they say, that's all right. I'll make you next time around. Still a little bit grumpy, but at least he's kind of saying he's kind of backing off from it a little bit. And then we get to the bridge here where the plot thickens and George is probably taking ownership because obviously he's been unkind. But if I seem to act unkind, it's only me, it's not my mind. That is confusing things. So he's not really taking ownership here. He's just kind of saying, it's not me, it's my mind. It's all kind of clouded with thoughts and everything. I really don't know who I am anymore. But he's still kind of taking it out here. Now, this bridge here is the part that George wanted to rewrite in his autobiography. George said in 1966 that he had a hard time putting the words down with lyrics and the way that he wanted, so he'd express exactly what he was thinking and feeling. That's difficult to do, I think, for anybody. And he often felt like he was compromising. It was even bugging him here, like years later. And George wanted to amend, that bridge. So rather than saying, but if I seem to act unkind, George would rather have had, although I seem to act unkind, meaning that he's taking a little bit more ownership. He goes, yeah, I was probably a bit of a jerk back then. I'm sorry, kind of, sort of. It isn't me. It is my mind. So with some hindsight, George looks back and says, yeah, I was a little bit of a jerk. I was just in a learning curve. Really, no, but it's my mind that was just a bit of a mess. So anyway, so George, but I actually think that this song is perfect just the way it is, because I think that it reflects where George was. It's like a time capsule of that time where we all wind up sooner or later, where we really don't know what the heck we're doing, where all we're doing is we're just trying our best, where we're going through all these changes. And I love the fact that we almost get like this inside look of what's going on with George, where he is in this limbo land and looking around like, things aren't making sense, least of all myself. I'm not even making sense now. I Want to Tell You is a song about George right in the middle of discovering who he is. And then we go to the third verse here. I want to tell you, I feel hung up and I don't know why. I don't mind. I could wait forever. I've got time. So he's still on those, like the two halves of the verse. I want to tell you, I feel hung up and I don't know why. So he's a little bit more vulnerable there, telling us like the problem is me. So before he was mainly talking about Patty and like between them and there, now he's talking about like, it's me. It's really me. I feel hung up and I don't know why. I don't mind. I could wait forever. I've got time. So George trying to be philosophical about it, trying to say, it's all right. I know I probably am not going to be able to solve my problem yet. But the second bridge, to me, is the most beautiful part of the song. Sometimes I wish I knew you well, then I could speak my mind and tell you, maybe you'd understand. So this is George, almost like looking deep into Patty's eyes and really opening himself up, being vulnerable and saying like, I really want to connect because I know that instinctively, maybe this is what I should do. I really don't know how to get there though. And will you let me in? And like, is it safe? Because now George is most likely feeling unsafe and dumb and stupid and no longer myself here because he doesn't even know himself. I don't even maybe even know my wife here. And like, are you going through the same thing? See, I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I really can feel like that vulnerability from George who's saying like, I just want to connect, man. So I just think it's so beautiful. And then George repeats the third verse. I want to tell you, I feel hung up and I don't know why. I don't mind. I could wait forever. I've got time. And Paul helps with the tension between the two halves of the verses. I want to tell you, I feel hung up and I don't know why. Dee, 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 dee. I don't mind. I could wait forever. I've got time. And then Paul also helps with the time, with the high harmony kind of trailing off, into the distance there, highlighting the word time. So I feel like George is thinking time is an important word here with a song, because obviously maybe instinctively he recognized that I'm not going to be able to handle it right now. Maybe I just got to grow into myself, and that's just going to take time. So another beautiful thing about this song, like I said, it's right here in the middle. The whole song is right here in the middle. You have the verses balancing themselves out, the bridges kind of balancing themselves. You got George with that first bridge where he's kind of stinky. Okay, not really taking responsibility there. The second bridge where he's being more vulnerable here and saying, this is where I really am, man. Okay, please help me out. And then you also have the song beginning with that guitar riff kind of fading in. And then the song fades out with like time again with the guitar riff as well. See, it's just a beautiful thing. I don't know. I have no idea if George meant it to be this way or not. I have no idea. And if he didn't, that's just another beautiful thing about the song I want to tell you. And I'm sorry it just took me so long to figure it out. At least this is my take anyway. All the mixed emotions, the beauty of just being in limbo and just, like letting it happen. And George, finding out years later that, it really was my mind and the thoughts that were making me crazy. I just wish that George had had a little bit more time to maybe go through more changes and tell us all about those changes as well. Now, Ringo has some thoughts on thoughts with his latest song, Long, Long Road. Ringo says, don't attack your thoughts. Let them in and let them go. I think that George would have loved that. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I really and truly appreciate it. And until next time, peace and love one another. Take care. Hey, I think there's a lot more going on here than meets the eye. Just like with George himself, there was always a lot more, going on inside of that man. It's a beautiful thing.